So you want to get into rifle competition. Hi everyone, it's a 4-gun guy. And this is a video I've been wanting to do for a really long time, ever since I started shooting in competition. We're going to talk about getting into PRS style shooting. Now PRS, you might hear that term and you're going to say, what does that really stand for, right? Some people say precision rifle shooting, which is what I take it as. But then there's also the PRS organization, which is the Precision Rifle Series. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that because most of what we talk about today is going to be around the rules and regulations that whatever governing body you decide to join, I'm going to be talking about PRS specifically today. They're going to have rules and regulations on what type of rifles you can use, what type of equipment you can use, depending on the division you're going to shoot in. There are monetary thresholds, there's caliber thresholds. So that's really what I want to go over with you today. I see a lot of Facebook posts out there on various websites where people are saying, hey, I want to get into this, but I have my hunting rifle, or, you know, I don't have anything, or I am a hunter, but I've never shot this stuff before. What do I do? How do I do it? So I want to really start kind of building a series around that. Today, we're going to talk about generalizations here. So I'm going to talk in general about the different divisions. We're probably going to focus on one specific division, which is the production division. And talk really about that because there's a lot of limits there that you've got to take into consideration. And the reason I think it's important to talk about this is we're going to get to my journey. And in my journey, you're going to learn some of the things that I've learned and other shooters like me have learned about getting into this sport. So if you're ready to go, let's get to it. Let's talk about the Precision Rifle Series organization. So why would you want to join an organization like that? Well, I'm gonna give three just big points, and I haven't written these down. These are off the top of my head. Number one, it's nice to belong to something like that because it's organized. It is organized. It's just not a bunch of guys getting together on a weekend going, hey, let's go shoot some targets, right? Being that it's organized, it has strict rules and regulations really focused around safety. So I love that about those types of organizations. Number two, they do have the different divisions. So you don't have someone showing up with a production rifle and getting wiped out by open shooters who just are great and have really, really good equipment. I'm going to caveat that by saying I have seen many production rifle shooters beat everybody in a match. All open competitors, everybody. They have different divisions, so if you just want to compete at a regional level, it's very reasonable to join them. And once you join them, you go to websites like EuroOptic, you get some pretty nice discounts. But I like the safety factor, the organization of it, the fact that you can join it regionally, nationally. They even have whole nother level, which is called the AG Cup that you can pay into, and there's prize money and all that. But it's just a good organization. So I really encourage you to look up PRS and get on there. Let's talk about the divisions that you may run into if you join either PRS or another type of organization. When you go out to the PRS website, you're going to see these different divisions, right? So they've got a bolt gun open division. They have a bolt gun production division, a bolt gun tactical division, and they have a gas gun / semi-automatic division. So I want to start going down all of these and talk about what to consider within each kind of one of these. Actually, I'm going to switch things up here a little bit because I put my rifles in the wrong position. We're going to talk about the open division first. This is my open rifle. Open is pretty simple. Anything goes. So anything goes as long as the caliber is 30 caliber or below, and as long as your max velocity is 3,200 feet per second or less. This is an impact precision action mounted in an ACC or an MDT ACC chassis. It's got a custom barrel on it. It's chambered in 6mm BRA. It's got a zero compromise scope on top of it, mounted in a spur mount. And let's see, I've got some other gadgets on here, but we don't need to go into those. It does have a Bix and Andy trigger in it. And the reason I'm mentioning all this stuff is because this, in the production level rifles, your limit is $3,000, okay, for the rifle. So forget the scope, but just the rifle, your limit is $3,000 in production. Well, this is an open rifle, and I can tell you that right now, just the action and the chassis pretty much blow by that $3,000. So where in production you're limited to $5,500 all up, let's say, for the rifle and the scope, in the open, you can do whatever you want, right? As long as the caliber and the velocity stay the same. Now, there's a lot more to this, guys. So I understand I may get comments that say, you didn't mention this, mention that. I'm asking you to go to the PRS website, read the rules and regulations, because it's all right there. And that's not what this video is really about. All I'm trying to tell you is if you go with open, you can pretty much build any rifle you want to, the rifle of your dreams, stock, chassis, whatever, and you'll be good to go. Now let's talk about that production division and talk about some things to consider in that division, because some things that you want to consider generally will come with the more of the open rifle characteristics. And you'll see what I mean when we get there. So I'm going to set this down. Now let's just do this. Let's just do this. Do that. Do that. And now let's go ahead and talk production. In production, for a centerfire rifle, you are limited to $3,000 for the rifle. So not the scope, just the rifle. Here's the thing to consider. And I'm going to kind of go back to when I started this and bought this rifle, because this is a great example of what I want to talk to you about. I made a mistake buying this rifle, but I didn't know any better, right? And some of the mistakes that I made were, number one, it wasn't heavy enough at all. Number two, Bergara has, their aftermarket accessories are very limited. And it was very hard to get things like a weight kit for this chassis. It doesn't have an ARCA rail on the bottom of it. So we're going to talk about that a little while as well. So I can't mount a bipod like I can on my open rifle that has a full length ARCA rail going all the way down the chassis. Some of the grip here wasn't really what you want to have for centerfire competition. The buttstock was great. It's very adjustable, so that was good. The bolt on this thing is one of the smoothest bolts I've ever run. So the bolt, the action, everything on this rifle was good. Is the barrel as good as it could be? Probably not, but again, it's more difficult to change a barrel out on this Bergara if I needed to change a barrel out. And that's a great segue into another thing about production rifles. So if we look at production rifles, they are 30 caliber max, which pretty much every centerfire is. Well, I take that back. We're going to get to that in a minute. 3,200 feet per second max makes sense. Barrel considerations: if you want to change this barrel or upgrade this barrel, you must send it back to the manufacturer, and it must be a manufacturer's barrel. If they cannot provide those services, you can use a gunsmith, but the gunsmith has to install a factory barrel. So they have to install a Bergara barrel on this Bergara action if I want to keep running this production. Okay, these are big considerations because you're going to get to a match and you're going to start shooting and you're going to go, oh man, you know what? I think I want that 1.25-inch straight taper barrel that the 4-gun guy has. Not if you're going to keep shooting production, you can't. And by the way, this action may not accept this big barrel, and this chassis may not accept this big barrel. You see where we're going with this? You got to do your research, and you have to think about, where am I going to be a year, 2 years from now? That's not to say if all you have are the funds today to get this rifle, to get into PRS, then knock yourself out. Have a good time, right? Have a good time and enjoy it. Just understand that when it comes time to move to this other level, this may not be able to do it for you, and you may need to start with a whole nother build. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just telling you what to look out for there. I mentioned the ARCA rails, the weight systems, all of those things you want to consider, because this rifle here with the scope on it, this rifle right here, see how I'm picking that up? That rifle right there? This rifle weighs 8 pounds. This rifle here, yeah, this rifle with the scope and everything on it, this rifle weighs 23 pounds. This rifle weighs 3 times as much as this rifle. And trust me, especially if you're going to shoot a 6.5 Creedmoor, trying to stay on the target after you've broken the shot with a 6.5 Creedmoor on an 8-pound rifle, you're not going to be anywhere near the target for your follow-up shot. These are things you want to consider, okay? Trigger on a production rifle, we cannot upgrade the trigger. I can't change the trigger out on this rifle. I can adjust the factory trigger to get as far down as I can safely on this rifle, but I cannot replace this trigger. So again, 8-pound rifle, 6.5 Creedmoor. This trigger, I believe, is probably somewhere around 3 pounds, 4 pounds trigger pull. The trigger on this open rifle is at 8 ounces, so a half a pound. So I can get it down that far. I can't get this one down that far. And trust me again, that makes a difference. It makes a big difference. Aftermarket parts, I think we already talked about these, but you want to be careful about what will work with aftermarket parts with your chassis. Again, this doesn't have an ARCA rail. Now, could I get one and put it underneath here? Yes. Will that, here's the question, will that take me above the production rifle cost? No, it won't. So, if you read the rules, what they're saying is the production rifle, when you buy it, has to be $3,000 or less. It was $2,500 last year. But yes, I can add a rail, I can add weights, I can add a muzzle brake, I can add a tuner, a suppressor, I can put anything else on this production rifle I want to. I just can't change the trigger, I can't change this barrel, I can't change the action and call it a production rifle, which you wouldn't do anyway because it wouldn't be. But I can make all those other changes for this and still remain under the production umbrella. Let's talk about some production rifles you may want to consider. All right, need my specs for this one. Hell, getting old. All right, candidate rifles, and I'll put these up here. The MPA PMR2. This is a really nice rifle, but here's where we're going to get into a conversation about production rifles that you're really going to want to pay attention to. The MPA PMR2, you can get that chambered in most 6mm calibers, which is great. Chambered in .308 and chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor. Awesome, awesome. GA Precision, they put out what they call a pinnacle production rifle, and that's right at like 2,500 bucks. But the thing about the GA Precision is they only run these things like twice a year, so they're usually out of stock on them. But it's a really nice rifle from what I've seen. And I believe this one can be chambered in many different calibers as well. The Sig Sauer Cross PRS rifle. This rifle looks awesome to me. I mean, it really does look pretty cool. And it looks like it's got a lot of the already built-in accessories and whatnot that you would want in a competition rifle. Here's the rub. It's only chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor or 308. Those are the only two that on their website says that it comes in. The Bergara PRS Comp rifle, which is similar to this one, right? This is an older version of it, but PRS Comp rifle, but it is chambered only in 6.5 Creedmoor or 6mm Creedmoor. Okay. And then there's two others. There's the Seekins Havoc Hit, which really looks like a cool little starter rifle to me. And that's got 6mm GT, Creedmoor, 6.5 Creedmoor, 6.5 PRC, 308. So that might be an option for you as well. And then the final one on my list, and again, guys, please, this is not exhaustive, right? I just wanted to sprinkle in 5 or 6 options that you might want to start with, do some research, set up a matrix like you've seen me do on my optics reviews, and go from there. Straight Jacket Armory. This really looks like a really nice option here because it comes in a Zermatt. It's got a Zermatt action. It's got a KRG Bravo chassis, which is a nice chassis. And I can't remember what that can be chambered in. I believe it could be chambered in a number of different calibers. So here's the thing. I talked about some of this stuff, but one of the things I want to talk about here for the production class especially is the caliber. What should you get this thing chambered in? Now, I told you already, I started with a 6.5 Creedmoor. This was a great rifle. It's now basically my wife's rifle. But it has some recoil to it, okay? Now, I've talked to some guys who say, I'm going to start with a 308 because I want to learn how to manage recoil. Okay, please think about the recoil. You have 2 minutes, and in some matches, 90 seconds to shoot 10 to 12 targets, which means when you break the shot, you better be on the target for your follow-up shot. Or if you're transitioning, shot 1, I missed. Where did I miss? I don't know, because with a 308, I'm aiming at 10 o'clock, 50 feet above the target, right? Even if you've got a 23-pound rifle. So all I'm telling you is, unless you've really been good with a 308, or even a 6.5 Creedmoor, I'm just saying get a caliber that's going to allow you a benefit right off the bat. And that benefit is staying on or close to the target after you've broken the shot. So you can, number 1, see where you missed, and number 2, reacquire the target quickly. That's just my advice. Let's hear some things in the comments. Please be nice, because I know I just dissed the 308, but please be nice in the comments. Now let's get to the tactical division, which is basically 308 or 5.56 or 223. So for the 5.56 223 subdivision there, your maximum is a 77 grain bullet with a 3,000 foot per second maximum, and your 308 is a 178 grain bullet max with a 2,800 feet per second maximum. So there is a tactical bolt division, and I have seen guys win a very hard match that I've been shooting up in Anderson, Texas. I've seen guys, I think top 3 with a 223, and that's going out to 1,000 yards. So it can be done. Very hard to see the impacts with that cartridge. So I would ask you to consider that as well, right? Are people going to be able to see your impacts, or are they going to not? Is it going to be crickets when you know you've hit the target, right? Because they can't see it. Other things to consider. So that's really the tactical aspect of it. And then we get to gas gun, which is semi-automatic. Now that would be something like, hey, if you want to take your 223 AR out there, knock yourself out, it's not geared to go 1,000 yards. And I know people are going to, again, in the comments, going to go, I hit 1,000-yard target with my 223. Awesome. I'm glad you did. But for competition, it's going to be difficult for you to run a 223 gas gun, in competition. Now, we're starting to see a lot of 6mm builds in gas gun, and with that, that's great, right? It's semi-automatic. The difference there is when you go to move, it's just something different to think about. When you're on a stage, I shoot 2 shots and I have to move to the next position to shoot 2 more shots. With a bolt gun, my bolt is back because I just discharged the case, and I just make that transition. In a gas gun, you have a round in the chamber. So when you move, you have to set the gun on safe, and you have to say safe. And you have to remember to do that because you do have a live round in the chamber as you're transitioning position. So just a little difference there. But gas guns look like they're a blast. You may want to get started in that and never look back. Let's go ahead now and talk about 3 more things. I want to talk about the chassis stocks, the accessories, and the scopes. All right, let's talk about chassis versus stocks. Again, all my rifles are chassis. I just love the chassis. I love it because it is very upgradable. You have all these attachment points on it. Like this, I'll take this one down. Well, like, the MDT ACC, I've been a big fan of that. I'm actually switching to MPA, but this ACC has been great for me while I had it. So I like a chassis. Now, again, the difference here between this production Bergara and my open rifle is, if you look at this chassis, if I put these side by side, this rail on the open gun goes out to here. This rail on the Bergara goes out to here. That's a big deal. That is a big deal shooting PRS. So make sure that you get the right thing for you. I'll tell you, the good thing about a stock is it really dampens the vibration. It's a stabler platform. It's very much more stable than a chassis, in my opinion. I could just never get used to a stock. The other thing about the stock is it doesn't have all these attachment points for things. I'd see guys show up with a spigot mount shooting out of the front of their stock forend, and they'd have a scuba diving weight zip tied to that. That was their front end weight, right? Because there was nothing else out there to help them balance the rifle. So just think about things like that. As far as accessories are concerned, I already talked about the weights. Make sure it can accept some decent weights or weight systems. Tuners and brakes, right? I've got I love the Area 419 Hellfire Match brake for my centerfire. I really like that. This is just the brake that came on the Bergara. I've just never removed it or put another brake on there. Other little gadgets and doodads, like I've got a match or stage saver on this one and on my other one, where you've got 2 rounds in here in case you run out of rounds, you have a jam, you have to drop your mag and put it back in and you're empty. You've got 2 rounds here. So those are some accessories to think about. Make sure you are getting a production rifle that accepts standard AICS pattern magazines or any other standard magazine type, right? There's been a couple of these rifles that I've seen that, yeah, here you go, here's a rifle. Well, yeah, but you got to buy our magazines. Well, I need a 12 round. We don't make a 12 round. Now you're going out there trying to find a place that makes a 3D printed extension for their 10 round magazine. You got to research all this stuff, right? It's much better to just be able to go out there, buy a 12 round AICS pattern magazine, You've got it in your rifle and you're ready to go. Level systems, for example. Now that comes more up with the scope, but you can also, like on this one, I've got on the open rifle here, I've got a send it level on the other side, the little lighted level, or you can get just a bubble level and mount it. So just want to make sure you've got space for stuff like that. And the last thing I'm going to say before we get into the scopes, go to a match, don't buy a thing, go to a match and use their loaner rifles. In fact, I was talking to my buddy Jeff the other day, and I was going over this with him saying, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And he said, don't forget to mention loaner rifles, okay? Where I shoot here in Texas, Texas Precision Matches, awesome group, just awesome group of guys. They've got like 8 22 or rimfire loaner rifles. They've got like 8 centerfire rifles that they just loan you. You show up, you grab the rifle, you pay them for some ammo. The rifles are already pretty much zeroed in, and the dope is trued up. And go out and use the loaners, because then you're going to understand, do I want a chassis? Do I want a stock? Do I like the scope? This scope's kind of cool, da-da-da. Even if you don't go shoot a match, what I would also recommend is if you show up near the end of a match, so if you get there about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, walk some stages, watch people shoot, and when the match is over, find a squad that's kind of a nice, low-key squad. And at the end of the match, yeah, they're going to be trying to get out of there, but I promise you, if you go up to them and say, do you mind if I just put your rifle on a barricade here with a bag and see how it feels? Do you mind if I look through your scope? Do you mind if I dry fire your rifle? If I have any ammo left, I promise you, if you come up to me and go, you mind if I send a round or two down your... No, here, let's set it for 500 yards, get behind it, and try it. So please don't just think that you're going to drop, you know, $3,000 on a rifle and $2,500 on a scope, and all of a sudden you're going to get it and go, I hate this thing, right? Don't do that. Do your research, get out there, play with them, look at them, and ask if you can, if they have loaners, use them is what I'm saying. If they don't, ask some guys after the match. Final thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to do a whole nother video on this, but is the scope. So again, on the production, the scope limit is $2,500. And I believe that's retail. So when you go out to these sites and you see that they have a sale for a Vortex Razor Gen 3 for $2,000, I believe this is the case. For $2,000, but if that scope is $2,700 and you buy it and put it on your production rifle, you could be in trouble of being kicked out of production and moved up to open. Okay, so just be aware of that. There are a ton of great scopes under $2,500 out there on the market. I mean a ton of them. Don't just go grab the scope off your hunting rifle that's a duplex reticle and mount it on this thing and expect to go out there and hit targets at 600 and 700 and 800 yards. You're not going to do it. It needs to be a first focal plane scope. It really does need to have some type of a tree type reticle. I would recommend mils, not MOA, because again, you may hunt with an MOA scope. Nothing wrong with that. It's fantastic. But when you get to these matches, people are going to be talking in mils. So make sure you get a mil reticle with a mil turret. Everything is mils. Just make sure that you do that for the scope. So with all that said, man, I went through a lot of stuff here. I hope you got some benefit out of it. I'm going to go to final thoughts and keep that kind of short. All right, well, final thoughts. I really appreciate you hanging with me on this one. I know it's a lot of talking. We didn't have any range time and all that, but I really think it was an important video because, as I said earlier, a lot of guys, I'm hearing a lot of people say, I want to get into this. What do I do? Right? Let's talk about it. Number one, go out to the PRS website. Read the rules. Read the divisions. Look at the divisions. See what you might want to get into. You may have some buddies who shoot this already, right? So if someone comes to me tomorrow and says, hey, I want to get into PRS, but I don't have a rifle. Okay, go to Academy, buy some 6.5 Creedmoor ammunition. I'll bring this thing to the match next week and you can shoot it. There you go. I have no problem doing that, right? So see if you have any buddies, but read the PRS website, see if it interests you, if you'd like to join. Go to a match. Don't shoot it, just go to it. See how it's all laid out. Understand the rules. I have a video here, I'll put it up here somewhere, about your first PRS match. Okay, so I walk you through everything. Then use a loaner rifle, right? So you go to a match, you've watched it, you like it, you want to get into it. Talk to whoever's running the match at that match. Do you have loaner rifles? Yeah, we sure do. Okay, great. Then the next match, go there and shoot it. However, in the meantime, I don't even care if you have or use your hunting rifle with a wooden stock on it. Go somewhere that you can practice. Practice at home. Practice. Get a cheap bag. Get a bag. One bag. Get one wee bad bag. And use it on the back of a chair. Put your rifle up there. A table like this, so you can lay your rifle on it. Just get in the habit of how things should feel, how things work. If you have a hunting rifle with that's a bolt action, get used to running the bolt, right? Get used to set your rifle down on the bag, run the bolt, dry fire if you can with your rifle, dry fire, bolt up, bolt back, get up and move the bag, move your rifle, set it down, and then rack around. I'm telling you guys, that little bit of practice, when you get to the match, and if that is somewhat natural for you, that takes 20% of everything you need to think about out of your mind, the safety aspect of it, okay? So that's what I would say. Then do your research. Set up your matrix, put down to on the left-hand side what you're looking for. Make your budget, right? If you're not going to reload, don't worry about it, right? Then get either a production rifle or build an open rifle. Here's a topic we didn't really talk about, that will accept off-the-shelf ammunition, right? And do your research on what off-the-shelf ammunition is available out there right now. If you think you're going to walk into Academy and buy 6 GT ammo off the shelf, you ain't doing it, okay? You may need to be able to order it from somewhere online, but I don't know. I've never looked for 6 GT ammo already made, so I don't know. I know you can get 6mm Creedmoor ammo. I know you can get 6.5 Creedmoor all over the place. You can get 308. There's a few other calibers that you can get off the shelf. That may be one of the biggest deciding factors for you. What ammo am I going to be able to use? Because I'm not going to get in and spend $5,000 on reloading equipment just yet if I don't even like this, right? That would be like, let me see if I like golf. I'm going to go buy a golf cart. Yeah, you would never do that, right? So those are some things to think about. All right. Well, hey, I want to thank you for hanging in there with me. I've got a bunch of other stuff coming up. It'll scroll around the bottom of the screen here. I really am trying to get out there to do more stage videos. I just haven't had the time. I've got some other reviews of optics coming up, one of which is a redo. So we're going to revisit an optic I kind of gave some bad press to about 9 months ago. You may know which one it is. I talked about the turrets being mushy and it wasn't up to the standards of that company. And well, we're going to see if they fix some things. So that one will be coming out here in a little while as well. And the review on this $400 Discovery Optics optic, which really has kind of blown me away as I've used it. So with all that said, thanks a lot, guys, for the subscriptions, comments, likes. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, shoot straight.